to the Artful Teaching Podcast. I'm Callie Phlox, here with my co-host Heather Francis, and we have our guests, Brenda Beyal, Emily Soderborg, and Stephanie West, with us here today. Brenda and Emily manage our Native American Curriculum Initiative, and Stephanie supports the initiative as an instructional designer.
And today, Brenda is answering questions that teachers have submitted about including Native content in the classroom. And the question that we have for this discussion comes from a high school social studies teacher in the Salt Lake City School District. This teacher is aware of the Title VI Native American Parent Committee that meets monthly, but is concerned that they don't have a lot of attendance. They're struggling with funding and staffing and advocate positions, and wants to offer more things at the meeting to encourage more attendance and engagement. I think the teacher's main question is there information or curriculum that I can bring to this parent committee to enhance engagement, or what are your ideas, Brenda, for connecting Native families with a cultural space that connects them with their schools?
So this is a really good question because we are all about creating curriculum, and I'm hoping that Emily will help me with that particular part. The Title VI program is a fantastic program. It is a federal program specifically to help Native American families connect or reconnect to school, culture, and language. And so every district in the state of Utah should have a Title VI coordinator. And they are the key to bringing families to monthly meetings. And it's exciting because there are a couple of things that you can think about when thinking about Native American families. Many times we think that Native American families should leave their children at home, but in Indigenous culture, we take our children with us everywhere. We take them to the powwows. We take them to, go eat dinner with us. We do everything with our children. And so we even go to dances with our children, pack them with us and have them dance and play with us while we also enjoy ourselves. And so it is definitely a family event. And so looking at it as a family event and seeing the positivity of intergenerational relationships would be an important component that needs to be acknowledged and validated. And so a monthly meeting definitely should include multiple generations. Food always brings people together, and we can learn a lot from one another. Salt Lake City is home to many different Indigenous people that come from differing tribal nations across the United States. I am just thinking in my mind right now, friends of mine in Salt Lake, some of them are Diné, which is Navajo, some of them are Hopi, some of them are Ute, some of them are Choctaw, some of them are Lumbee. I have friends who are Paiute who live in Salt Lake City and Goshute. And so bringing those families together and helping them to understand that community is also about learning about one another's culture within Indian country. I think that another way of helping families come together is maybe connecting with different organizations within Salt Lake City. The Urban Indian Walk-In Center has wonderful resources, and they honor multi-generational families, they honor traditional ways, and learning from them and partnering with them might be a good thing to do. Having a meeting at their center might be a good place to start. I know that the Red Butte Garden has wonderful classes and wonderful programs that welcome Indigenous communities. The Museum of Natural History also is very welcoming. Those are just a few off the top of my head that I can think of.
A lot of times when we bring people in the community together, people don't know how to serve or what they have to contribute. So I'm wondering if when these families are brought together, the question can be asked, who are you and what do you have to offer? You're an important member of this community. Do you have skills or stories or things that you can bring into the school and getting to know people? So I wondered about if they shared our lesson plans on our website, or if they shared the Utah Artist roster, and it gave people a vision of, oh, you mean people want to learn those stories? Oh, my grandmother sang me that song. Oh, I know that person on the artist roster. Maybe I have something to offer. And possibly sharing the resources that we've offered to teachers with the parents and families will help inspire them to realize they have Indigenous art forms happening right within their own families. They have their own stories and their own oral traditions, and they may have some wonderful things to offer their school community.
Tying it to culture, I think, is important. And coming together as Indigenous people is always such a good feeling, especially if you're far away from, ancestral homes. So I really like that idea, Callie. So when I was teaching school many, many years ago, Eileen Quintana showed up in my classroom, and she introduced herself as the Title VI coordinator. And as she helped me learn about Title VI and the impact it can have on Native children and Native families within our district, I became excited. Now, Eileen's office, she didn't have an office. She was hired as a Native American program manager of Title VI. And so her office was in the trunk of her car. And maybe that was a good thing, because what she did is she started traveling from school to school. And the first people I think she sought out were Native teachers within the community and within our district. And when she told me about what she wanted to do, I was on board. I wanted to participate. And so she gathered a few core group of people who had the same vision and passion. And she, through the years, has built an amazing program for the Nebo School District.
It's so wonderful when we have people who impact our lives and individuals that serve. Thank you for sharing, Brenda.
I want to go back to the part where the meetings are poorly attended by the Native American Parent Committee. And these are monthly meetings that are held. I want to offer another lens into why that might be happening. My husband, he had to go to boarding school when he was in kindergarten. And he went to boarding school the first couple of years of his schooling. And so his experience has been something that he's had to deal with for many, many years. And so knowing this, I realized that maybe there are children whose parents or grandparents are products of boarding school experiences and therefore may have reactions or may not see school as a welcoming place. If you look at boarding school history, there are some, I'm sure, who thrived, but there are many who could not speak their language, whom had their hair cut and their way of living just completely. In other words, I feel like they were constrained. They were no longer able to be the person that they wanted to be. And so some of these experiences have possibly created behaviors such as not liking being in a school environment. And so I think I would say taking the time to look beyond that they're not coming to monthly meetings, maybe looking to see that there can be some historical trauma that might be impeding their willingness to come into a school would be beneficial. And so how about holding a monthly meeting or trying to hold a monthly meeting somewhere else other than in a school?
I think to help our listeners really understand the depth of what you're saying, Brenda, it's important to recall a phrase that was common in that day and age, which is kill the Indian, save the man. And when we can put it into the blunt terms of what the thinking was of those leaders thought they were to assimilate the Native Americans into white culture. And they did set out to annihilate everything about them that was Native American or Shoshone or Paiute or Ute. And that kind of systemic trauma leaves very deep wounds and scars. And when people don't know their personal identity and when they're shamed for their personal identity, that is a deep-rooted kind of trauma that requires being aware of. So where you were using careful language, I wanted to bring that phrase back into people's awareness. Kill the Indian, save the man.
Thank you, Callie. General Richard Pratt is the one who said that. And Native American people were taken from their families, specifically. Well, I think I should ask Stephanie to give us what she's learned about boarding schools, or give us kind of a little history of it.
So I don't have a lot of specific knowledge about boarding schools, so I can tell you some of the conversations that we've had with the Native groups here in Utah, and I think it's a lot more individual perspectives. So when we have talked with the Paiute Indian tribe of Utah, that was a very sensitive topic for them, and it is a trauma for them. It's been a major trauma. I think that there are many individuals who, and even talking with the Navajo Nation about their experiences, they look back at them and they see that this was at that time, it was a tearing apart of families, and families were so integral to Native populations, to the indigenous beliefs about themselves, their culture, their connection to the land. And so it tore them away from their homes, it tore them away from their land and their communities. So that's a lot of the trauma that's associated with that. However, there were multiple different perspectives when we talked to the Confederated Tribes of the Goshute Reservation about their experiences. Some of them had somewhat positive perspectives on this. So, and said that they did have some positive experiences that came about because of that. So I think it's important when we look at that to recognize the trauma and recognize that everyone had different experiences. And so that definitely is probably affecting some of the families' views and their ability to connect now with education and with their schools and the school community.
Those are wonderful insights about why people might feel alienated from our schools. And then we've shared earlier about the wonderful curriculums that we have to offer. So as we wrap this all up together, does someone have a concluding statement?
They talked about curriculum, wanting to know about curriculum. And I just wanted to say that our curriculum, even though it is an elementary focus, so much of it can be used with any age level. It just takes a teeny bit of adapting, and it can be used with families. So if you're doing like the Great American Bison lesson plan, you could have families come together and create artwork as families doing that at the same time. Or you could have families coming together to learn a song and how it connects with other songs in other cultures. Or you could have families. I know the Title VI program in Nebo, because that's where I live. Right now, they have had their students performing a play that they're doing at the Jim Matheson Courthouse. And so they're using the arts to then bring families together, and they connect together through the arts.
And in this question, the teacher had asked about, supporting Title VI initiatives with non-Native teachers. So our lesson plans are made for non-Native teachers to include Native content in the classroom. So that would be totally appropriate, right?
It would be appropriate. Obviously, you would hope that you could find Native people within the community that could partner with the non-Native teacher, because I think there's always good side-by-side coaching, and they see two different perspectives, and I think that that is good for our students.
Super. Thanks for joining us, everybody, and we'll look forward and we'll see you next time. Artful Teaching is made possible by the BYU Arts Partnership in the McKay School of Education.
Thanks to James Houston for editing this podcast. Music was generously provided by Connor Chi, a Navajo Diné composer and performer.
And special thanks to all of the teachers who are changing lives every day while serving in schools.
If you like what you heard, please leave us a review. You can find all the show notes for this episode and more resources at advancingartsleadership.com.
And don't forget to check out our tribe-approved lesson plans on the website as well.
I'm Heather Francis.
And I'm Callie Phlox.
And I'm Brenda Beyal.
Wishing you an artful journey.
Listen to the Utah Teacher Fellows podcast. We explore the greatness of the profession through individual teacher stories. Join Audrey Dameron and Ryan Rarick as they speak to teachers and teacher leaders throughout the state. Recent episodes include Audryn explaining her decision to run for state school board. Casey Weaver, a teacher in the Ogden School District, spoke about the rooms full of human potential she encounters as a kindergarten teacher. And coming this month, we speak with Marley McClune about overcoming imposter syndrome and how she strives to own her own greatness. We love discussing a wide array of complex issues that make up the teaching profession. We also would love to engage with our audience. Check our show notes for our email address where you can submit mailbag questions that we will discuss in future episodes. Find the Utah Teacher Fellows podcast at theutahteacher.com or on any major podcasting platforms such as iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Amazon, and Stitcher.